Okay, here we go. So we are going to talk about SOA. So let's first understand what exactly is SOA. So basically SOA stands for Service Oriented Architecture. Okay, please understand, sometimes people ask, is it a technology? No, it is not a technology. In the name itself, it says it is an architecture, and it is a loosely coupled architecture. Okay, what does loosely coupled mean? Loosely coupled means something, where let's say we have two systems which are required to talk to each other, but I can talk to them in such a fashion that the existence of one system should not impact the existence of other system. It's something like, for example, now we both are talking. Okay, so this is a tightly coupled session. Okay, I have to be definitely there if you're interested in listening to the session, but there are some institutes which run these sessions in the pilot mode where the trainer might not be present at the same time. We have the recorded sessions. Okay, you are given the access of some portal, and you can access those sessions from anywhere at any point of time. So there what happens is the dependency of two parties who actually ultimately require to talk to each other is less. So SOA is highly accepted in the market because of its loosely coupled nature. I'll talk more on this. Okay, so now we have told that it stands for service oriented architecture. It is a loosely coupled architecture, and SOA is basically composed of two things. That is services. In the name itself, in the full form itself, it says service oriented, means services form the base of SOA. Okay, SOA cannot exist without services. I will talk what exactly is services, and next thing on which SOA is reliable is messages. Okay, messages are nothing but data which is exchanged among the services. So messages represent the data which is exchanged among the services. Now when I say it is a loosely coupled architecture, any questions from anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead. Guys, is there any question from anyone?
No.
Okay, then fine. So if a layman language I have to explain to anyone what is SOA, so I will say SOA is a solution for making two or more systems to talk to each other. Okay, it is something which makes two or more systems to talk to each other. So it's something like, let's say there is a person from Brazil, there is a person from Japan, there is a person from Japanese, and these people have to talk to each other. So there would be need of someone, okay, who knows all their native languages and can convert their languages into the native format. And again, at the same time, he might be knowing the, let's say, some generic language which everybody can understand. Or so what happens is, he is a person who should be having the capability of converting one format to another. So let's say Japanese talk, he needs to convert that into the format which Brazil understands. So instead of that, here what we have is, here we have different enterprise applications. When we talk in the SOA terminology, so when we talk about an enterprise, okay, the business giants, so they would maintain different systems to manage their enterprise effectively. They might have a lot of CRMs, they might have BRMs. Okay, they might have payroll management system, they might have inventory management system. So there are different systems equipped within an enterprise to manage the enterprise effectively. Now what happens is, in real time there comes a requirement where we need to integrate these systems, and these systems might be developed in their native technologies. Okay, it's not necessary that all the systems which we are using in an enterprise are built in the same technology or are running under the same platform, but still there might be a requirement to integrate these systems with one another, to have some reports, to have better understanding of the things going within an enterprise, to analyze certain data. Then there comes a role of SOA, because SOA is capable of making two or more systems to talk to each other. So we can say SOA is a middleware solution. Okay, so it acts as an intermediary. That's why I told it is a middleware solution. And I already told it is basically based on, okay, the baseline of the SOA is services and messages. So let's try to understand what services. Services is nothing but is the logical encapsulation logical encapsulation of some business functionality. Okay, some business functionality. The business functionality can be something like addition of two numbers. It can be something like making online payment. So it can be very simple, it can be very complex, that doesn't matter. So whatever, like, in our conventional programming languages, we used to say that we have some functions, right? We used to define functions, or in Java we define methods where we do the logic building, or where we define the whole plan of action, what is required to be done. Similarly here we define services, and those services hold some functionality. Okay, those services deliver some functionality. Now this services should be complete within itself. Okay, so we should define services in such a fashion that they are discrete and they are complete within itself. So let's say if anybody says that my service is capable of doing addition of two numbers, so I must be contacting that service. How does that service do the task internally, or it might internally utilize other services as well? That's not my area of concern, that's not my headache. I need not to just understand that how to talk with that service. That service internally should take care of everything. Okay, for example, if anybody says this is my function which is capable of concatenating two things, so I must understand how to talk with that function. What does So I'm more interested in knowing how to talk with that function, but I'm not interested to know how many functions that particular function internally makes use of. So similarly, when I talk to any service, I should define service in such a way that it is complete within itself. See, I advertise that my service is capable of doing something like this. So user should pass certain arguments, he passes request, so service should be capable of doing the processing and should deliver the response. Internally what is happening, that is not the area of the concern of the requester. Those all things are abstract to the requester. I'll explain with an example. Okay, so now see, this service is just one concept. Now we implement the services with the help of web services. So basically web service is the implementation of SOA. We implement the SOA as a concept. Okay, SOA is not given by Oracle, SOA is not given by IBM, this is not native to any company. Okay, so different IT giants, okay, their top executives come and sit together and came up with an architecture SOA. So it's not native to any particular company. Different IT companies, different IT giants have implemented this architecture in their different tools. Okay, similarly Oracle gave a tool called as Oracle SOA Suite, where they have leveraged this architecture. And whenever we have to leverage this architecture, so web service is the implementation of Oracle SOA, or we can say web service is the implementation of SOA basically. So SOA is implemented with the help of concept of web services. So what exactly is web services? A web service is a software function. So it is as good as a function we have in any conventional programming language, okay, provided at a network address. So now what is the difference? How is it different from any other function? It is hosted somewhere on the server, and it is available on some network address. So a web service is a software function provided at network address over the web, and it can be accessed using something called as WSDL URL. Okay, there will be, let's say, as a SOA developer, what do we actually do is, okay, when we get into the field, okay, in the IT industry, so when we work for any company, we will be basically developing a solution which makes different systems to talk to each other. Okay, because I already told SOA is a solution which makes two or more systems to talk to each other. So we are going to develop some solution which is making, okay, different systems to talk to each other. That might reside within an enterprise, or that might be inter-enterprise. Okay, so there might be enterprise of some other third party. We might need to talk to that as well using SOA. So now when I do that, I have to leverage the SOA architecture, and this SOA architecture says that I can be implemented with the help of concept of web services. So what we do as a Oracle SOA developer ultimately is we develop some set of web services which are capable enough of making these systems to talk to each other. Okay, so I am saying web service is like a software function. Okay, definitely there will be some syntactical changes, there are some add-ons. Okay, so reusability concept is more in the web services as compared to your conventional functions, and moreover it gives a lot of loosely coupled mechanism also. I'll tell you how it is loosely coupled. Now what I want you to understand is, let's say, all of you might be knowing at least C language or Java, you would have a fair idea. So let's say I developed a function. Okay, I developed a function and I want you guys to make use of it. Let's say the name of my function is addition and I want you guys to make use of it. How are you gonna make use of it? How can you make use of any function? I'm saying there is a function addition which has been developed by me and I want you guys to make use of it. So how can you make use of anybody's function? Okay, Bipul says we can call the
Just
function.
call the function.
Yes, Bipul says call the functions, which is absolutely correct. In order to make use of any function, we need to call the function. So let's say my function name is addition. Then how are you gonna make use of my function?
Okay.
So by just knowing the name of the function, can you decide how to call a function? No. By knowing the name of the function, you cannot decide how to call a function. So you must know signature of the function to basically call the function, if I'm not wrong. Okay, signature of the function would mean number of parameters associated with the function, then data type of the parameters, yes, and then the third thing might be order of parameters. The name of the function itself must be known in order to call it. Then we might know return type of the function. So all these things are required to be known whenever we want to work with any function, whenever we want to make use of any predefined function. Okay, in your conventional programming languages like C, when we make a use of printf, scanf, okay, so all these functions are predefined functions. We must know the signature of those functions in order to make use of it. On a very similar note, let's say I developed a web service. I told web service is like a software function. Okay, so the only difference is there are syntactical changes. Okay, it is hosted somewhere on the server and it can be accessed by the URL. Okay, there would be a corresponding URL which helps you to access that particular web service, but internal concept remains same. So when I say I have developed a web service which is capable of doing addition, you cannot work blindly with it. You cannot blindly say that I can send a request and I cannot accept any blind request. So there is a need of knowing the signature of the service in order to work with any service. In order to interact with any service, you must be knowing the signature of the service, and in order to know the signature of the service, you need to know the corresponding visual file. There is a file called as visual file which stands for web service description language. There will be a whenever we develop any web service, there will be a corresponding visual file to it. So let's say I develop 10 web services, so corresponding to 10 web services there will be 10 visual files. What does this visual file hold? Basically it is an XML based file. Okay, most of the files we come across in this Oracle SOA development would be XML based. Okay, because the reason being XML is platform software and hardware neutral, and we always need middleware in a format which is generic, okay, which is canonical, which everybody can understand basically. So that's why we prefer all the files in XML format. They have designed your Oracle SOA suite which involves multiple files in XML format. And when I say there are multiple services which talk to each other, so these services talk to each other in XML format, again for the very same reason, because this our service XML is platform software and hardware neutral. So first let's focus on the Visual. I said Visual is a XML based file. We'll be talking a lot on Visual. Okay, we'll have 2 sessions reserved for Visual only, but here I want to give you a high level idea. So when I say my service is capable of doing something, okay, so what happens is this Visual file gives a description. What does it tell? That the tasks which a web service can do. Or instead of the task, we use the terminology called as operations. The operations which a web service can perform. For example, I say I have developed a web service called as calculator. Now by saying the name calculator, I cannot imagine what all operations it might do. It might do addition, subtraction only, it might do addition, subtraction, square root, cube root, all those functions as well. So how do I come to know? I need to go through the web service corresponding file called as Visual, which stands for Web Service Description Language, which is an XML based file. While going through this file, I will have something called as operations, which will give me an idea that what exactly a web service can do. Okay, this operations will give an idea what exactly a web service can do, and a web service can perform. Note point is, a web service can perform multiple operations as well. Okay, so see, please try to understand. If you come from the Java background, if you want to develop an analog, you can say a class, complete class is like a web service, and within a class we can have multiple methods, right? So similarly, within a web service we can have multiple operations, we can do multiple tasks. Now operations can be of multiple types. Now let's right now talk about the two categories of the important operations we have. We may have synchronous operations, or we may have asynchronous operations. Okay, so this Oracle SOA suite is really very famous for asynchronous communication. So let's first try to understand what is synchronous and what is asynchronous. Anyone on the board has an idea what is exactly synchronous or asynchronous? Okay, so Bipul says something which gives the response immediately is synchronous, which is absolutely correct. So let me define it this way: an operation is said to be synchronous if there is an immediate response for the request initiated. Okay, please excuse the typos. So an operation is said to be synchronous if there is an immediate response for the request initiated, and the client who initiates the request waits for the response. Next note point is request and response floats via same channel. Okay, now what exactly does it mean? So let me put it in a layman language. So let's say synchronous communication is something like I give you a call. Okay, let's say I give you a call and you pick up my call. So I establish one connectivity with you. I started talking to you and you are responding back to me. So I am waiting for your response. If you respond back to whatever I say how are you? You say I'm doing good. How are you? So I say I am also doing good. So if there is a communication like that where there is within the same channel there is an interaction between the two parties, there is a request and corresponding to that request there floats a response, then it is called a synchronous communication. It is called a synchronous operation. Please understand that whenever a requester sends a request to the provider sends a response back to the requester, and the requester must be waiting for the response. So to each request there is an immediate response. Okay, and if at all there is no response received by the requester within a stipulated time, then we get timeout exceptions. So let's say I am developing a synchronous communication. I am the client, I am the requester. I raise a request towards you. You are the provider. You do not send back a response in the stipulated time. So there is a property in our Oracle SOA suite which decides the time period for which your client would be waiting for the response in case of a synchronous communication, and that property is sync max wait time. I'll be talking about this property again as well, but to just give you an idea, and this by default value is 45 seconds. We can change its value to any amount of seconds we want, or we can reduce the number of seconds as well, but ideally it is recommended to not have very high value of this particular property. Any doubt so far? Anybody who's not following me? Okay, now let's talk about asynchronous communication. So let me uh, you know copy some part of the definition over here so that I do need not to type it once again. So an operation is said to be asynchronous if there is delay in the response for the request initiated. Next point is the client does not wait for the response, or the requester does not wait for the response. Next point is request and response both floats via different channel, or both travel via different channel. I'll give you an example. An async operation can also be considered as combo of two one-way communication. Okay, what do you understand by one way? One way is also called as fire and forget. Okay, it's something like, as the name suggests, I will send the request but I never wait for the response. It's something like, let's say you insert the data into the database. So do you get any acknowledgement from the database that data has been inserted? You don't get it, right? Let's say you run a select query on the database, then definitely you get a response corresponding to the query you run. So that is synchronous communication. But if you talk about the delete, update, insert, these all are one-way operations. You send the request, that's it. You do not get any response as such. For example, you write the data into the file. Do you get anything? You do not get anything as a response. So asynchronous communication is something like, I give you a call, you are busy. Okay, I give you a call, you are busy, so I can go ahead and I can do n number of tasks which were pending for me. So let's say I am working as a executive for a company. Okay, I am a salesperson who has to increase the contact, or who has to call the existing contacts and try to develop more friendly relationships. I have to explain about my business to gain more business. So let's say I have 100 contacts to be called in a day. I gave a call to one contact. They might be busy, they didn't call. So if a synchronous communication is there, then it means I give a call and I'll keep on waiting for the response. And if the response does not come, I will be getting my request timed out. But in case of asynchronous communication, what happens is I give a request, and if there is so let's say in the case of asynchronous communication, I give a request. I do not wait for the response. First thing is, I do not wait for the response. My job is to just initiate the request and over. I can go ahead and I can start talking with other customers who are queued up as per my, as per my task for the day. And whenever customer whom I have called might be interested or might be free, can give me a call back. So there is something called as request and callback. Request is initiated from requester to the provider via channel, and again the provider calls back to the requester via different channel. Okay, so there are two channels, or there are two separate connectivities. One is from the requester to the provider and other is from provider to the requester. Both may not be at the same time. There might be huge delay. There might be a delay of 2 minutes, there might be delay of 20 minutes, there might be delay of 2 days as well. But the nature is there would be no one waiting for the response, even though let's say the response has to travel immediately, but the nature of the process is that it would travel by a different channel. The requester is not there to wait for the response. Whenever we design asynchronous processes, whenever we design asynchronous operation, it's something like fire and forget. So one-way request from the requester to the provider, and the other one-way request from the provider to the requester. So first request is called as request, and the other response or the other request which travels from provider to the requester is called as callback. Are you guys following me? Okay. What
Yeah,
about
yeah.
okay. So guys, coming back to the thing which I was saying, I said there is a calculator service. So I cannot understand by knowing the name of the service what all tasks my service can do. So I must be knowing the operations. Okay, by seeing the operations, I will understand this all tasks my service can do. So let's assume there was a calculator service within which I had two operations: addition operation and subtraction operation, and let's assume both of these were synchronous operations. So now can you understand what format of request do you need to send to invoke addition operation of the calculator service? Let's say I have developed a class within which I have got two methods, addition method and the subtraction method, but is it enough for you to invoke my addition method? Does this information help you to invoke my addition method? Answer is no. You must be knowing the request and the response format as well. So where is this information available? This same information about the request and the response format which an operation accepts is also there in the visual file. So here may be request and the response format. So your visual file is nothing but a file which gives a complete description about the service. Now let's say you know the request and the response format. You know what all tasks the service can do. It's something like, there is some Oracle SOA trainer. you have seen his demo video also, but if you don't know his contact address, you don't have his email ID, you don't have his phone number, even you don't have his physical address where he resides, can you contact him? Is it of any use to you? It's of no use, right? If you cannot access that, okay, there is of no use. There is a heroine, Aishwarya Rai, she is very good, okay, she is looking for some match, but if you cannot access her, then she's of, let her, her accessibility should be there with you in order to interact with her. On a very similar note, when I'm saying there is a web service which can perform this operations, I know the request and the response format as well, but if I don't know where is the service located, how to access a service, then it's of no use. So there is a info about the location of the service as well within the visual file, which tells the location where my service is hosted. Okay, how can I access my service? That info is also there in the visual file. Apart from this, each web service will have some protocol format. Okay, protocol which will have some protocol. Protocol is nothing but some set of rules. So these set of rules will decide the request and the response format. Okay, so there might be, you might have heard, there is SOAP based web services. SOAP based web services. If you have not heard, hear it now. There might be REST based web services. So these are the different protocols, okay, which a web service might adhere to. Okay, so different protocols helps us in creating different types of services. A same web service can have two protocols also. Okay, so I might have a scenario where a web service can support two protocols also. So this info is also there in the visual file. We'll show you the visual file little later, but here at this point of time, I want you to have a high level idea of what exactly is there in the visual file. Why do we actually need to know the visual file, or why do we need a visual file to basically get to know about the complete service? Whenever we need to access any service, we need to know about the visual file of that particular service. Any doubts about anything which I've spoken so far?
Okay, so based and rest based are basically the protocols.
Right, that's true. So SOAP is a protocol, REST is a protocol. Any web service which is adhering to the SOAP protocol is a SOAP based web service. Any web service which is adhering to the REST based protocol is a REST based web service. What is SOAP protocol? We haven't talked so far. We'll be talking that in coming sessions.
Okay.
Okay. So now a problem statement is, if you go for any interview, one very valid question anybody might ask is, see, SOA came into the market, let's say 10 years back. Okay, now it is gaining more importance because it gives a lot of agility to your architecture. So if let's say you have to scale up your architecture, you can easily do it in a more reliable and more flexible manner by having SOA. I'll tell you how. But what was there before this? Okay, like what still, let's say whenever the systems were required to be integrated before SOA was introduced, how those systems used to be integrated, what add-on we have by having SOA, why are enterprises spending again more money in buying the SOA license and introducing SOA. Okay, so the reason is, before SOA was not there into the market, let's say there are two systems A and B which are required, which needs to talk to each other. So there is used to be a direct communication between these systems, which is called as point-to-point integration. Okay, this point-to-point integration is called as tightly coupled integration. Okay, it is called as tightly coupled solution because these two systems which require to talk to each other are talking with each other directly. So a failure or impact, or a failure in one system impacts the other systems also. First thing is, failure in one system impacts other system as well. Next thing is your point-to-point communication. I'm writing P2P. P2P communication results in a mesh of wires. Okay, it looks something like mesh of wires when number of systems required to be integrated are more. Okay, so for any enterprise which has less number of systems, point-to-point integration might look as the best solution. Okay, because it is more faster. Okay, and moreover, we can visualize the things in a easier fashion. We need not to have any additional software to make these two systems to talk to each other. This communication was possible earlier as well, but the major challenge we encounter when the number of systems increases which are required to be integrated with one another. So let's say A needs to integrate with B, C, D, E, F up till Z with remaining 25 systems. So A need to establish connection with 25 systems separately. Similarly, B wants to connect with remaining 25 systems. So for B also there will be 25 connections. Similarly, for C also there will be 25 connections. So in order to make A to Z talk to each other, in all I might have around 625 connections. Okay, and that might look a mess up thing for me. Okay, so now in order to overcome this, okay, SOA was introduced where it's something like A is there which talks with SOA. A has no connectivity with B directly. So let's say A has different native understanding format, B has different native understanding format. These are the systems which are built in heterogeneous technologies. Now there was a point-to-point integration earlier which was possible. Okay, but now when we introduce SOA, major advantage we have is it is a more loosely coupled solution. A's existence does not impact B, B's existence does not impact A. Actually, they do not know each other at all. A knows SOA. Now within the SOA layer, we build the smartness or we build the logic such that it can do the necessary transformations, it can do the routing, it can do the logic building before we pass that request to B, so that we do the conversion in a format which is understood by B. Let's say in future one more system is required to be integrated with A, then A need not to establish any connectivity with C. It's something like this. So we need to have one more system C which needs to talk with SOA. So earlier, if you see in the point-to-point integration, I needed to have 625 connections, which can only reduce to 25 connections when I talk with SOA, because each system need to talk with SOA. That's it. Within SOA, we will do the logic building to do the necessary transformation so that we can route the request from one system to another system. We can do the transformations. Systems do not know each other directly. So this brings loosely coupled mechanism into the picture, so that if let's say C is replaced tomorrow by D, my A need not to do any change. A's interaction with SOA remains as is. Within SOA, I should have a mechanism. Within my this middleware, I should have a mechanism to do the routing, okay, and to do the transformation change. But A or my systems which are talking with each other remains unchanged. It's something like I can say SOA is like event management company. Okay, the advantage we have with SOA is something like an event management company. So or some wedding planners. For example, let's say 10 years back, okay, even in even in India, in most of the cities, what when people plans or when people plans any wedding, what do they do is they need services of the different service providers, right? They need the services of the different service provider. They need the services of caterers. They need the services of decorators. They need the services of logistics people. They need the services of some hospitality team. So they need different people to basically get one task done. Now the era has changed where we do not have people going to different service providers. Rather, my customer or my requester or my client goes to a wedding planner. What does this wedding planner do is, this wedding planner internally might have contact with n number of caterers, with n number of decorators, with n number of let's say hotels. And what does wedding planner do is, wedding planner tells us these are the different service provider I have. You select like which all service provider you want, and I will take care of everything. So we are basically, as a client, selecting the systems with which I have to integrate, but I need not to worry about the integration. I need to just worry about the integration with the wedding planner. I need to have a contract with the wedding planner. Nothing else is required apart from that. When I send the request to the wedding planner, when I pay the money to the wedding planner will internally take care how much money is required to be paid to the other service providers. His he is having a service contract with them, but I as an end user need not to have multiple service contracts. I need not to have knowledge of, or I need not to convert the request into multiple formats which are native to different systems with I need to integrate. I need to send a request in a format which SOA understands, and SOA will internally take care to convert the request into a format which is understood by the end system. So you know your end systems here might be a decorators, your end system might be here caterers. Are you guys understanding? So SOA is basically a solution. It is a middleware solution and it allows an end user to send a request in a format which can internally be converted into different formats depending on the systems with which we have to integrate, with which we have to do the integration. So this brings a loosely coupled mechanism. An end user need not to worry about the decorators, an end user need not to worry about the caterers. He needs to have a good good connectivity with the wedding planner. He needs to have a proper connectivity with the wedding planner. He ensures that he is abiding the contract which he has got with the wedding planner. That's it. Okay, nothing else is required for an end user. Are you guys understanding what I'm talking?
Yeah.
Any doubts from anyone?
So basically, all the information from A and B and any system information will be holding by SOA, right? As per
Yeah.
the example.
Yes, will be traversing via SOA, you can say. Okay, I mean SOA will do the necessary transformations to do the routing to basically make this communication possible. For example, now we both are talking to each other. Okay, so now what
Mm-hmm.
happens is I understand, let's say English, you understand English, but we are traversing, we are talking to each other via some media. Let's say GoToMeeting is a media. Okay, internally might be whatever I talk, those might get converted into some signals internally, some transformation happens and that again goes back to you. Okay, or let's assume there is a software which converts whatever you speak into some other language, right? So that software which does the conversion is nothing but SOA, that solution which makes integration between the different systems possible without making each of these systems to know about each other. That is nothing but SOA.
So, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like,
Yeah,
so
even what you said is
SOA.
correct. What you said is correct,
Yeah.
but you cannot say it holds. You can say it does the transformations, it does the routings. So holds means when you say anything resides within it. So it
So
basically passes the things from one person to another.
so no, no, my doubt is like, does SOA handles both the data, like system A and system B's data, and then transfer, or
No. See,
what it
see,
is like?
see. The basic job of SOA is to make two systems to talk to each other. Okay. Let's say I was
Okay.
working in a company. Now there came a requirement where system A is required to be integrated with system B. So what will system A do is, system A will take the request from outer world. Okay, it will pass to SOA. Now SOA will pass it to B. It will pass that request to B. Whatever conversions are required to do that with that request, it will do. Then B will send some response. It will come back to SOA, and SOA will again do the necessary transformations to pass it to A.
Okay, okay. So it's like a telephone.
Yeah, I mean, in whatever way you want to understand, or there might be sometimes might have certain scenarios where it cannot be something like A talking with B. It might be something like A has to talk with D, but in the process I need to fetch something from B. Whatever comes from B, I might need to pass it to C. Then C fetches me something, and whatever C returns me, that I might need to pass it to D. What I'm trying to say is, it might not be always simple integration of two systems. There might be a lot of logic building which is required. There might be a lot of so many intermediary systems which I need to talk with before I make two systems to talk to each other. So that all logic building can be done within the SOA. Within SOA, when I talk about Oracle SOA, we have got something called as BPAL. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, which stands for Business Process Execution Language. Okay, business process execution language. Now what exactly I mean is, let's say a user or a customer comes up with a requirement that I need a calculator service which can do addition, subtraction, multiplication. So there are two ways of designing it. One way is I develop a calculator service which is doing addition also, which is doing subtraction also, which is doing multiplication also. This example is something like, I am an event management company who has in-house catering, who has in-house decorating, who has in-house hospitality. or else, but this is not a good solution. This is more tightly coupled solution. The better solution will be that I am a calculator service. Okay, I will develop a calculator service, but internally there might be some addition service which is independently occurring, which might be provided by someone else. There might be a subtraction service which is independently occurring. There might be a multiplication service which is independent occurring, which is complete within itself. Now I will combine all these services into a single unit, and I will project to the outer world that this is my single service calculator. Outer world will always assume that calculator is the service which can do everything, but that's not happening internally. Internally, I am routing the request to some other services which actually does the task. Are you understanding? So I might need to integrate a lot of services to basically get the task done, and that integration can be done by the people. We'll talk a lot about it. This stands for business process execution language, and this plays a key role whenever we have to integrate some set of services into a single unit. So for example, for the outer world, single unit is, wedding planner. He is a single unit, but he is relying on different end users or different other services, discrete services, to do the task. Okay, I'll give you one more example if you don't understand it this way. So let's say, all of you might have made some, online e-commerce. Okay, and whenever we do that, we make some payments via credit card and all. So let's say you are logging into the Flipkart, you are interested in making some purchase. So let's say you are a layman, you don't know anything about IT. Okay, but you are using an app or desktop application to basically get into Flipkart and purchase some product. You added some product or some commodity in the cart. Okay, now once you are done with this, you get an option to make some payment, right? So when you make a payment, does that happen via Flipkart itself, or Flipkart relies on some third-party vendors to do that online payment?
Depends on the third party.
Okay, it depends on the third parties. You might have seen there is Paytm, CC Avenue, okay, and there are some n number of vendors who provide this info. So the point I'm trying to say is, end user might feel, the person who is not from IT or anything, he might feel everything is done by Flipkart, but Flipkart again, though it itself projects as a service provider, but it again depends on the services of somebody else. And what is that who is that somebody else? So I was a user. Okay, I was a service consumer. For me, who was the service provider? Flipkart was the service provider, but Flipkart again, though itself it is projecting as a service provider, but again it is dependent on the services of Paytm. So for Paytm, Paytm itself is a service provider and the Flipkart is service consumer. Yes, but now, does Paytm know your credit card info? Does Paytm has the database where your credit card number, name, CVV, all those info are stored? Is that the case? Like when you own a credit card, to whom do you contact? When you want to, let's say, take
Banker.
banker. Okay, so it means bank is holding that info, and bank cannot give a copy of its database to Paytm. Please take this database and do whatever you want, because that database is quite confidential and that database cannot be shared with anyone. So what happens is, even bank develops certain web services which are capable of validating the info which is sent by the Paytm. So if you see, Paytm is again the service consumer which is relying on the services of bank. So the point I'm trying to say is, this is a chain which runs in. An end user might feel Flipkart is doing everything, but that doesn't happen. We might be internally dependent on the Paytm services. We might be internally dependent on the bank services. So inner complexer services which are being used to get the task done are abstracted from the end user. End user see some simple service, but internally we might be using a lot of services to get the task done. That's what I'm trying to say. And this brings a lot of reusability into the picture as well. If you see, let's say bank developed a service which is capable of doing the credit card validation. Now, let's say there is a Paytm. Paytm can leverage the same web service. CC Avenue can leverage the same web service. PayU Money can leverage the web service, which is to say which remains same. So let's say there are hundreds of these third-party vendors who basically provides this online transaction facilities. They all can leverage the same web service of a particular bank. Similarly, Paytm developed a web service which is capable of making the online transaction possible. Okay, whenever we want to interact with the Paytm, Paytm will expose some API, okay, or we can say Paytm will expose some web service. Now there may be lakhs of e-commerce portals which might be interested to utilize the Paytm services. So Paytm would not develop the web services for all the lakhs of customers. They will develop a single service, and all the load can come via same service. So Paytm is developing a single service which again becomes a reusable component. So if you see this, by seeing this, what happens is you see that there is a lot of reusability by the concept of web services. Once we develop the web services, that can be developed by n number of people. Even you see, when you talk about the match broadcast, there are cricket matches these days. IPL is going on in India. So whenever there is a cricket match, okay, you might see the live updates on crickbuzz.com, crickinfo.com, or there are some n number of portals. So now, does these people have, or does these owners have got some satellites using which they are getting the live updates? Or I mean, is there any person whom they send over there, that person types in and sends the info? That doesn't happen, right? Because if that happens to be the case, then it might take a lot of time. Okay, so by the time cricket match is over, then you might be getting the live updates, but that doesn't happen. So what happens is, whenever a cricket match is planned, there would be broadcast rights given to any particular company. Let's say broadcast right is given to News Source. Okay, now this Neo Sports develops services. They may have an IT department where they have a lot of services which can be subscribed by crickinfo.com, crickbuzz.com. Okay, those might be paid services or free services, and they are leveraging the same service. Okay, if let's say I have 100 portals, 100 portal owners are leveraging the same service to fetch the latest info. They might give the different look and feel. So you might feel that crickbuzz.com has a different look and feel from what crickinfo.com has, but the ultimate source of the info remains same. Are you guys understanding what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay, so SOA brings loosely coupled mechanism into the picture. SOA brings reusability into the picture. SOA talks in terms of services and messages. What exactly are messages? Messages represent the data which is exchanged among the services. Okay, these messages are, when we work with Oracle SOA suite specifically, are most of the times, I can say 95% of the times, in XML format. So XML understanding is considered to be the prerequisite to learn this Oracle SOA suite. Okay, if you don't know Java, it's fine. If you don't know any other language, it's fine. But you must have a XML knowledge. Okay, and just XML which we have learned in our 12th standard or BTech is not enough. It's more vast. Okay, because it would need the knowledge of more enhanced concept of XML, such as XSD, WSDL, XPath, XSLT. Okay, and if you learn or OSB, you might need to know XQuery also. So these are the different languages which are required to be known, okay, when we work with this Oracle SOA suite. And basically, whatever we work, okay, whatever we try to integrate, let's say I have to integrate 25 systems with one another, those 25 systems have to be projected in the terms of web services. Then only I can leverage Oracle SOA to do the integration of those 25 systems. SOA does not understand anything. If I talk about Java, in Java, if I have to work with anything, I definitely have to create class and objects. That's the basic standard. I cannot work without class and objects. Similarly, when I want to work with SOA, I cannot work without web services. I will definitely have to project the different operations which I want to do with the different systems while doing the integration as web services only. Okay, and these might be SOAP-based services or REST-based web services. Up till Oracle SOA Suite 11G, there was no support for REST-based services. We used to build SOAP-based web services only because these are considered to be more secure. But now, since the mobile communication has become more popular, we want mobile integration as well. So mobile communication, whenever it happens via REST-based services, because those are more lightweight components. So I will show you both kind of services, but our major focus would be on the SOAP-based web services. Now this is the baseline of SOA. Now whatever we have talked so far is about the basic SOA. We have not talked anything about Oracle SOA as such specifically. Okay, now when I say Oracle SOA, what exactly it is, what is the hierarchy. So what happens is, Oracle or IBM, these keep on coming with some different tools to meet the innovation, to meet the increasing demands, and IT always demands that we should come up with a solution which is more cost effective, and we should deliver the same solution which we were delivering in, let's say, 30 days. Now we should be able to deliver that in 15 days or 20 days with a new solution with a reduced cost. So Oracle introduced two products, something called as Oracle Fusion, and one thing was related to Oracle Cloud, which includes, your cloud computing, where you have SAS, IaaS. I don't know much about these. Software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, which is more related to cloud computing. We won't focus on that. We would focus on Oracle Fusion. So they gave a solution, Oracle Fusion. Within the Oracle Fusion, they had Oracle Fusion applications. Within the Oracle Fusion, they had Oracle Fusion applications and Oracle Fusion middleware. Okay, so what does Oracle Fusion application means? This are also referred as OFA in the industry. These are the different applications. These are the different, oh my god, applications used in an enterprise to manage the enterprise effectively. For example, there might be some invoice application, okay, which creates the invoice. There might be some accounting application where we maintain all the accounts. There might be some payroll application which generates a payroll of all the employees. There might be some inventory application where I maintain all the, all the raw material which I have in my warehouse. So these, they like this, we may have different applications. Now in the industry, we know that software costs or the expectations from the software keep on increasing. Now why this Oracle Fusion middleware was introduced? This is capable of integrating different Oracle Fusion applications with one another, as well as with third-party applications. Okay, it's not mandatory that, if I have an enterprise, I might be using all the systems of Oracle. I might be using few systems of IBM also, or there may be some other third-party also. So your Oracle Fusion middleware is basically built on certain standards. When I say standards, those are the standards which are followed across the industry. So which helps me when I follow such standards, which that helps me to integrate within the Oracle Fusion applications, which are there as a, which are basically Oracle applications, as well as the third-party applications. And within this Oracle Fusion middleware, I have got Oracle SOA. So Oracle SOA is a part of Oracle Fusion middleware. Okay, so it is a product within the Oracle Fusion middleware which leverages SOA architecture to basically integrate different systems. Apart from Oracle SOA, you can see ODI is there. There is Web Center. Okay, there is BI, which also comes under Oracle Fusion middleware. You might see OSB also. So this is the hierarchy. First we have Oracle Fusion applications. Okay, sorry, first we have Oracle Fusion. Within Oracle Fusion we have Oracle Fusion applications and Oracle Fusion middleware. And within Oracle Fusion middleware we have got Oracle SOA, which leverages which leverages SOA architecture. Okay, where we will try to integrate different systems leveraging the SOA architecture. And in next 30 days we will be basically focusing on this Oracle SOA. So the earlier version which we have had in the market was 10G, okay, which almost most of the companies have migrated from 10G. Okay, this was not so advanced version. There were a lot of problems with this version. Okay, now there was 11G. Right now in the market, most of the companies use still 11G. Most of the IT companies, more than 75 to 80% people are still using 11G because it is the most stable version in the market. But the latest version we have in the is the 12C, which again has got a lot of bugs yet, but things are improving. Okay, but please understand, 11G and 12C doesn't have so many changes in the basic things. I mean, the base remains same, but you see from the 10G to 11G, there were a lot of basic changes. Okay, architecture changes were there, but from 11G to 12C that has not happened. few things which were not configurable in 11G have been made as configurable, have been made more easy to use. Apart from that, few more things have been added in the 12C. So 11G is the most stable version. We will have major focus on 11G. We'll discuss what new things have been added in the 12C as well. So now this is about the hierarchy. We have talked a little bit about SOA also. Now it is a time to talk about the SOA architecture. But before I get into that, please let me know if you guys have any doubts. Are you guys following it? What is your feedback? Okay, I mean, if you want me to continue, then only I'll continue, or else we can take the SOA architecture, how the architecture looks tomorrow as well, because some people might have office because you guys are joining from the different time zones. So first, let me ask you if you have any doubts. Anybody?
No.
Okay. So are you getting an idea what exactly SOA? Because after this session, you must be in a situation that you should be able to speak at least for 5 minutes about SOA. Because there are people, we who talk about SOA, who know SOA. You ask them what is SOA, they don't know. SOA is service-oriented architecture. That's what they say in the interviews. That's why they do not get selected. Okay, so nobody is interested in industry to know the full forms. Okay, so they basically want to understand the concept. So that's how we have to be different from others. So some people have got the office. I think we can wind up today here only because people are joining from US and they might have late night already. So let's wind up here. We'll
Yeah.
talk we'll talk about SOA architecture tomorrow. So I'll collect your feedbacks. If you cannot tell on my face, okay, you can just drop me an email whether you are looking forward for joining it or not. Okay, because it happens we cannot say directly. So we can have offline communication regarding that. So we'll have this timing. Most probably I may not change the timings. Actually, I told people I might change it. I can make it. I can prepone this session, but I cannot postpone it.